Welcome to Speak for Yourself from the crib, presented by Hyundai. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley, happy Monday to you. Fantastic show planned for you today. We will talk some NFL and a new proposal that NFL ownership will consider about how to hire more minority coaches. We'll get into that. Hue Jackson will join us, a former NFL head coach with the Raiders and the Browns. Also, Marcellus's man from San Diego and my former colleague or peer in the media business, Jim Trotter from the NFL Network. He'll join us to also talk about the new initiative. But we're going to start with the Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary on ESPN last night. It wrapped up with episodes 9 and 10. It was a tour de force. Now there's a debate. What's the better documentary, Last Dance or OJ Made in America? I say Last Dance. But there doesn't seem to be much debate about who the GOAT is in basketball, particularly as it relates to Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. ESPN releasing a poll, a pretty comprehensive poll of comparisons between Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Like 73% of people think Jordan is a better player than LeBron James, but they polled him on everything. They had Jordan rated as a better passer. In every category, Jordan outdistanced LeBron James, all the way down to the fact, I don't know if this has been released, but my sources say Michael Jordan's been bald for 30 years, and they still say Michael Jordan grows hair better than LeBron James. So this was a total wipeout. And we're going to bring in our main man, Jim Jackson, from his crib to help us talk about this, Marcellus, in terms of, to me, the Last Dance documentary. Its legacy will be it ended the LeBron versus Michael Jordan debate. It is over. Marcellus, do you agree?
No, I don't agree. For many reasons. I don't know what the time clock looks like, but I'm about to get a bunch of shots off here. First of all, I don't even think this is objective analysis. If you talk about ESPN that is broadcasting a documentary that is totally, fully approved by Michael Jordan himself, and this same documentary is now going to have a poll in the middle of it. Not in the height of Jordan's powers, but in the height of Jordan now reflecting on his greatness. We're going to ask, is he better than LeBron James? Now, remember, this documentary originally was scheduled to air in June during the playoffs as LeBron was seeking his 10th finals appearance. I think the reason we finally saw Jordan dust off all of this footage is because he's shook. He finally found someone that is threatening his throne, and it's LeBron James. Remember, LeBron James wasn't even fully introduced into the GOAT conversation until 2016 with the comeback down 1-3 against the Golden State Warriors. And with that epic comeback, people started to say, you know what? LeBron James might be the GOAT. And then shortly thereafter, we start dusting off the footage to do a production that is supposed to take a snipe at LeBron and his upcoming greatness. LeBron's in the fourth quarter of his story. Jordan's story is old and been told. Now, if you think that LeBron is down on the scorecards, here comes that fourth quarter comeback, which is LeBron James completing the final stages of his career and then exiting into the greatness of his brand. I don't know if LeBron has surpassed Michael Jordan, but Michael Jordan is feeling the heat. Therefore, we're witnessing this, and the conversation is still ongoing.
Shots. Okay, you got shots. All right. Jay, you don't know how to smoke that cigar yet, so let me teach you a little bit about that. But the answer to your question,
Jordan. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, the answer to your question, no, it doesn't end the debate because LeBron still has a few more chapters in his book to write. We don't know what's going to happen over the next couple of years in regards to the argument itself. LeBron is such a dynamic player that adding another championship or two, the conversation will intensify. Does that mean he's going to surpass Michael Jordan? I don't think so. I don't know. It depends on, again, who writes the narrative. Because if you poll maybe some young players, despite maybe seeing The Last Dance, a lot have grown up in the LeBron James era. If you poll the people like in that 600 people number who are a little bit older, who understood it a little bit more, it was more Michael Jordan. The challenge here is this. LeBron James doesn't have the aura because of social media, because people tend to know him a lot more. Michael Jordan, I was there in that era. There was something different about that Chicago Bulls team, that Michael Jordan era, that's hard to place in today's world. Because when they came to town, it was just different. You didn't see them quite often. You didn't really know the depth in which they thought, what they felt. Okay, you had an inkling about it. You may have seen interviews. You saw them before, after the game, press conferences, maybe on late night TV. But the aura, I don't think, can ever be recaptured in regards to that era. That's technology now being at the forefront. You can just go to Twitter, IG, and figure out who's doing what, who likes what. With Michael Jordan at that time, you couldn't. And I don't know if you can ever replicate or duplicate that. It's the reason why his shoes still sell to young kids who haven't even really seen Michael Jordan play. The debate about LeBron and Michael will continue to go on, even when LeBron's career is done. And to your point, Marcellus, LeBron is going to do a documentary. And trust me, it's going to be slanted a lot towards that he, over his course of his career, is probably going to be the greatest player to ever play the game. That's what a documentary is going to be. Kobe's, when they release Kobe's of his last year, guarantee you, it's going to be in that conversation as being one of the greatest to ever play.
Look, I'm just going to tell you why LeBron just will never be able to catch Michael Jordan. And again, this will sound like a major shot at LeBron, but it's really just the difference in era and culture. I'm just sorry. Now, I'm not trying to offend anybody out here in the viewing audience. We got a very feminized culture, right, going on right now. And what you just saw, 10 episodes of Last Dance, was masculinity and machismo from Michael Jordan. That's why his shoes sell globally at a record pace. You start removing masculinity, and people start thirsting for masculinity. That's why young people in this poll, because it didn't matter whether you were above 35 or below 35. In the history of the world, people have always been attracted to masculinity. Michael Jordan was the last king of the man's man era of the NBA. And we just saw, Marcellus calls it tape or footage. What Michael Jordan just did, he brought out his receipts. In case y'all forgot, here are my receipts. Here's what I did. There's no one, maybe Bill Russell, but Bill Russell played a different era, 9 teams. You can't even put him in the debate. Michael Jordan put his receipts out there and said, nobody can match this. I played in the era when Karl Malone could bust you upside the head. The Detroit Pistons busted me upside my head. I survived all that and became the king. People are attracted to that kind of masculinity. Michael Jordan is old school. Young people, old people, everybody's attracted to that. Everybody respects that. LeBron plays in a different era. Everybody wants to be best friends. Nobody wants to fight. No one wants to just do anything inappropriate. I just think it's the platform and where we're at today. LeBron can put together whatever documentary he wants, but as long as they show footage of him at the end of his first run in Cleveland, basically quitting against the Celtics, and they show any footage of him when he got to Miami going up against Dirk Nowitzki and Dallas, it's over. Michael Jordan doesn't have any receipts like that. It's over. Michael, somebody else, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the authentic challenger to Michael Jordan, not LeBron in my view.
Yeah, it's unfortunate we don't have receipts of Jordan quitting. Oh, you know what? We actually do. We just went and played baseball, and we called it something else, chasing a childhood dream. Retiring and coming back, that ain't called retiring. Check your dictionary. Here's the thing. You say we don't see masculinity, and all we saw was masculinity at its finest during Jordan's era. It wasn't fully evolved if it was, because the athletes weren't even fully evolved. How in the hell does this poll say that 71% of the participants thought that the era Jordan played in was better than the era that we're currently in? Are you crazy? Are you watching the same footage where the third best player on some of these teams are not even the sixth man on current rosters right now? Are we going to still go down that road, or let's veer? And let's veer to where Jimmy Jackson took us in terms of aura. And this argument, Jordan and LeBron, let's just be real about it. It's the same argument I hear in hip-hop all the time, talking about aura, when they say the greatest rapper of all time is Tupac. And then you know what they first say? He was bigger than rap, and he was more than just an MC. It was his aura. He did more than anything, the impact. And then I start saying, you know what's interesting about that? When you start going skill to skill, song to song, there are challengers. It's the same thing with MJ. He's bigger than the NBA. He was more than just a basketball player. Impact, look at my damn shirt. I hear y'all. But when we start going line item to line item, all of a sudden there is a challenger, a formidable one who's not done writing his script. His name is LeBron James. And I think these are parallels in terms of the comparison. We sometimes start to bring in other variables that really shouldn't factor into who's the greatest of all time. But that conversation will continue because LeBron will continue. He's not done. He's playing insane, exceptional basketball at a later age than Michael Jordan was. We'll see how LeBron finishes this argument, not you and I.
I mean, well, it's evolvement. I mean, because it's not, to me, it's not a right or wrong answer. It's who you prefer to deal with in regards to who you select as the greatest player. Again, a younger player, I think, is going to look at LeBron in this era and say it's LeBron James. An older era, it's going to be like, okay, it's Michael Jordan. But aura, in regards to this, the mystery about a person lends itself to adding to their value, adding to their status. That Tupac thing you talked about, yeah, I don't care who rapping right now, Kendrick Lamar, whoever it is, they don't have still, even though they may have more hits, they may have more money, they may have more of this, but it's something about Tupac that separates him from the other rappers. Something about Muhammad Ali, now again, his career is over, but the aura about what he did and when he grew up and what he had to deal with lends to why they say he's the greatest. Is Mike Tyson's record better than Muhammad Ali's? Probably. Is there some other boxers that are better? Yes. But things that he went through and the challenges that he faced when he was fighting, the person that he was, lends to why they say he's the greatest of all time. And Michael Jordan, when you watch the documentary, the thing and you can understand this, Marcellus, everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to get to that championship level. But are they willing to do everything it takes without putting in the unless part? Well, I'm willing to do it, go my way. Or the coach doesn't want to do it. Jordan wasn't like that. I'm going to make this happen no matter what, and either you're on board or you're not. A lot of guys are not built like that, and that's why that separation comes in when you start talking about LeBron and anybody else underneath that.
I like the Tupac analogy because in death, Tupac sold more records than any of these nickel and dime rappers today. And post-career, Michael Jordan is still selling more shoes than any of these nickel or dime basketball players today. We got to keep it moving. Hue Jackson's just around the corner. We're going to talk about a new initiative being pondered by the NFL to promote the hiring of African-American coaches and general managers. Hue Jackson, former head coach of the Cleveland Browns and Oakland Raiders, will join us. Speak for yourself from the crib, presented by Hyundai. More after that. A healthy lifestyle should be easy, right? Eat veggies, drink green smoothies, exercise to get your heart rate up, and do yoga to bring your heart rate down. Woo! Maybe not so easy, but there is something that helps improve everything, and you can do it with your eyes closed. It's sleep. Sleep Number knows what it takes to sleep your best. The Sleep Number 360 smart bed lets you choose your ideal firmness, comfort, and support on each side, your Sleep Number setting. It's the perfect solution for couples. These beds are so smart, they respond to your every move and automatically adjust to keep you sleeping comfortably all night. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. And now, for a limited time during the Memorial Day sale, save $1,000 on a new Sleep Number special edition smart bed, a queen, now only $1,799. You only find Sleep Number at Sleep Number stores or by visiting www.sleepnumber.com.
That's my dog.
Welcome back to Speak for Yourself from the crib. presented by Hyundai. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley. All right, time now to pull up at Hue Jackson's crib and talk some NFL. Hue, the former head coach of the Oakland Raiders and Cleveland Browns. All right, the NFL on Tuesday will consider two new proposals directed at improving the chances for minorities, particularly African Americans, to become NFL head coaches and general managers. The first initiative, I think, rewards NFL teams or incentivizes NFL teams or opens it up for anti-tampering and makes it easier for assistant coaches to interview for positions. The second proposal is a bit more controversial. It suggests, it proposes rewarding teams with improved third-round picks, move up 6 spots if you hire a minority head coach, 10 spots if you hire a minority general manager in the third round. Let's just discuss the second proposal. That's what's gotten the most attention. And Hugh, you get us rolling here. Is the second proposal about the third-round picks and rewards for that, is that a misguided proposal by the NFL?
I think it is somewhat. I think most coaches, it'd be interesting if they would have talked to people, the boots on the ground, you know, the coaches who would be in those situations. I say that just because I think that's a tough spot to be in as a coach, to know you're getting a job and then you're going to move up, you know, potentially and get more draft picks. And so why are you hiring me? You know, that would be something that I'm sure coaches would want to really dig into on the front end of it. Because you want to make sure that you're not the token guy getting hired because you're going to provide more draft picks for that particular organization.
Yeah, it's misguided. Look, I think everyone thinks that their heart's in the right place. They're aiming in the right direction, but going about it the wrong way. And that's just pretty obvious if you can think about putting yourself in this position, if you are a person of color and then you are given this opportunity. Beyond the why, you're going to say, how did I get this opportunity? And if you know it's because of an incentivized proposal, you had to legislate an opportunity for them. It is affirmative action in a new form. And I think that a lot of coaches will feel undermined by their presence and being there, and their authority will feel undermined because you are incentivizing teams to just hire a person because of their complexion. Yeah, of course, they have qualifications to support that. But the initial read is going to be it's complexion based. And being a guy who's seen this situation before, being in the NFL, as you know, Hugh, it's an earned, shared experience. You could come from a small school. You can come from a big school. You can't hide behind your program. We got to go through the combines. We got to show film. Like, everything is about this meritocracy, and it's an earned experience. And now you're just going to say someone can leap. And I understand this for great merit, great reason in your mind. But I just think that this course of action is going to come back to bite them.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you all. Misguided here. And I think one of the miscalculations here with the proposal is you got to remember who these coaches are. At some point, they're former athletes, high school, college, whatever. And it's about competition. And I don't know any athlete, black or white, any high-level athlete who's afraid of competition. And Marcellus used to be a sprinter in a 100-meter dash. You don't want a 5-meter head start. You want to go mano. And so in talking to people this weekend, coaches, other people, it just didn't strike the right chord with the rank and file, black or white. It's, hey, we are about competition. We're not afraid of competition. We don't want to be treated as if we need a special head start, give us a 5-meter head start. We just want to be treated fairly. And so I'm a bit surprised that the proposal got leaked and is out there when you didn't have the support of the rank and file coaches around the league, particularly African-American coaches. And then I would say this, the other thing, and this is kind of a big thought, but I want to put it out here because, Marcellus, you brought up the affirmative action point. And it's my belief, and I think there's a lot of people that agree with me. Affirmative action in the corporate world did not help African-American men. And I don't want to be offensive here, but I'm just keeping the facts, keeping it real. It helped white women, in my belief. And a lot of people having I'm 53 years old. I've gone through the affirmative action era. I graduated college in 1990 when affirmative action was pretty prominent. I don't feel it did a service to black men. I feel like white women benefited from that the most. And when I hear this proposal, that is my fear, that this really isn't about black men. This is about women and promoting them into positions, in executive positions in the NFL, and they will be the major benefactors, not black men.
I think it's interesting that you brought those things up, but I think both of you guys have some unbelievable points. I think, first of all, I commend the league, and the diversity committee for trying to do something. I think we all get it. They're trying to move the needle. They're trying to bring about change and create more opportunities. The positions that they targeted, from quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, head coach, GM, are the positions of what it's really all about in the National Football League. So I get it, but I think you both said it. How we do it, I think is really important. And so I think we all have to understand what the problem is and really dig into that before we come up with a solution. So I think it can't be something that's rushed. I think you got to take the time and really think about, why are we in this spot? This is the 100-year history of the National Football League, and we have not solved this yet. There's only been 18 head coaches that have been minorities in the National Football League. So that's an issue. So we have to understand, I think, the history of the league, how it started, where it is today, and then let's talk about ways to fix this and move forward.
You said it. I mean, we all can just see where their heart is, and it's in the proper place. Necessity is the mother of invention. Well, desperation must be the baby mama of just trying something new, because look at this situation. I know they're desperate, but damn, this doesn't make a ton of sense. I have talked to black coaches who were like, I'm not signing up for this, and they're supposed to benefit from this. So this is a situation where you're going to tell majority white ownership, hey, you got to bring these guys in, and we trusted you for almost 2 decades, and now we're going to incentivize you. No one who owns anything wants to be told what to do or how to do it, let alone putting those black coaches in a position where their authority will be undermined. So all around this situation, I'm glad Jason talked about affirmative action. Going to Columbia in the early 90s, when affirmative action was still around but was certainly declining, I always had a mindfulness of, how was I being perceived? Was I being perceived as an affirmative action student? And then I come to realize that I wasn't. I was just a damn good football player, and that was just my affirmative action. So that helped my resume. But these coaches want their resume to be taken for what it is, not with any other stimulus that comes from an outside force.
Hugh, I want to give you a final thought, and I'm going to ask you to be quick here because we got to move on to Jim Trotter. But my other fear with this is, if you start in these types of incentives and a team hires a black coach, not because they truly believe, but they want the benefit of the draft improvement, and I'm talking about the head coach or general manager position, I think you could see a lot of organizations put really restrictive puppet strings on that coach. If you've hired him not for the right reasons because of true belief, then you want to micromanage him and put puppet strings on him. That produces the kind of failure that we all want to avoid. A guy has to have the freedom to actually be the head coach or general manager.
Absolutely. And I think you just nailed it, Jason. The key is failure. We need success. The minority coaches need success in these positions. We need to be put in a situation where we have a chance to be successful, where all of a sudden the normal is different than what it's been, and give these guys a chance to compete on the same level playing field as everybody else.
Thank you, Hugh. Appreciate it. All right, we're going to stay on this topic and actually take a different spin. Yes, we think this is misguided, but as you heard from Hue and Marcellus, the intent is actually good. I know I am. We're going to defend Roger Goodell and Troy Vincent. The intent here is good. We'll talk about that with Jim Trotter from the NFL Network. Speak for yourself from the crib, presented by Hyundai. More after this. NASCAR's back. Huge congrats to Kevin Harvick, who took home the checkered flag at Darlington in the Real Heroes 400. Over 6 million people tuned in to watch on Fox, the most watched non-Daytona 500 NASCAR Cup Series since March 5th, 2017. And the action continues this week. Tomorrow night, it's Xfinity Series racing with the Toyota 200 presented by Geico. Then Wednesday night, we finish up at Darlington with the Toyota 500 presented by Geico, live in prime time and only on FS1. And Sunday, we're back on Fox for the Coca-Cola 600 live from Charlotte. That's racing. All right, welcome back to Speak for Yourself from the crib, presented by Hyundai. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley. All right, let's continue the conversation about the NFL and go out to Jim Trotter's crib in San Diego. Yes. Jim, a longtime NFL reporter, now with the NFL Network. Marcellus I think Marcellus was your off-the-record source for all those years in San Diego. Marcellus talked about that. But Jim, one of the best reporters in the NFL. Jim, I think, broke this story about the NFL initiative. We just had a conversation with Hue Jackson about whether we thought this was misguided. But I do, guys, think there's some upside here in terms of promoting the conversation about, hey, what is going on with minority coaches and minority hiring at the executive level. But also, I think this initiative puts a lot of pressure on NFL coaches, NFL ownership. This conversation being brought by the league, by Roger Goodell and Troy Vincent, puts a lot of pressure on NFL ownership. And then also, I think people need to understand there are two different proposals here. And I think the genius of this, to me, is the first proposal about giving Roger Goodell some oversight, removing this tampering deal and allowing and not being able to Mickey Mouse around with preventing coaches from interviewing for jobs by giving them bogus titles or whatever. I think that proposal is going to pass, and I think there will be no complaints about it, because I also think they're going to potentially be required to interview more than one minority candidate. I think all those things are good. This other initiative will take all the heat and the controversy, probably won't pass, but maybe the more important and substantive stuff will pass without controversy. Marcellus, do you think this proposal to reward, do you think there's some upside to this? Is this a bad look for Roger Goodell or Troy Vincent?
I think ultimately it will be a bad look in the sense of not their intention, but just our reaction, our response, because I think what's going to be glaring is the fact that you're not empowering these coaches, even if you give them a title or opportunity. That would not be an empowering experience for those coaches that land in these positions of this new affirmative action, if we want to call it that. You also can't legislate and incentivize teams that a coach is more valuable in his departure than he is currently on your actual team. Think about this. They're going to give a potential draft choice to a team that allows a coach of a person of color to go to another team. If you look at that beyond the PR land, it actually says that coach has value leaving. And you can't have a situation, a mechanism in place that gives you that type of value. And as we talked about in the earlier segment, it just really cuts the legs underneath a lot of the coaches who are going to be the beneficiaries of this. So I think ultimately it does land wrong for Roger and Troy.
Yeah, fellas, can we first lay the foundation here of what we're talking about? They're two separate issues. Number one, the league wants to enhance the Rooney Rule, and for that, it does not need a vote of the owners. That is something that simply the league office can impose. And one of the things they're going to do is require now that teams have to interview a minimum of 2 candidates when we're talking about the head coaching position or a general manager position. Also, they're going to apply the Rooney Rule to the coordinator position for the first time ever. So that's separate from these things that we're talking about. Now, in terms of the 2 resolutions that you guys have referred to, the first one would now stop teams from being able to block assistants from interviewing for coordinator positions. Why is that important? Because many owners believe that they want head coaches who have coordinator experience. And by doing this, now you, in theory, will get more minorities into the pipeline with coordinator experience. To the more controversial resolution that you're talking about, look, the bottom line here is that the league is totally frustrated at this point. It has put into place numerous programs to try and address this issue about the lack of diversity at the head coaching and the executive level with teams. And so you go back to 87, I believe it was, when the Bill Walsh internship program started. And that was considered radical in its day, and it helped to increase the exposure that some of these minority coaches could get. And we saw minority coaches getting hired at the head coaching level. And then in 2003, they brought in the Rooney Rule to try and address this further. And there was some initial positive movement out of that. And now things are backtracking, and so they're trying to figure out what to do. Here's the problem. I have talked to at least a minimum a dozen minority coaches about this. Current head coaches, former head coaches, aspiring head coaches, as well as some personnel people, and I get two things from them. Number one, they feel it makes the league look bad from the standpoint that the only way owners are willing to consider to hire someone of color is by bribing them with improved draft status. The second thing is, they say, it is an insult to them personally because they will be viewed as someone who simply got their job because of the color of their skin and not the extent of their resume. And so those are two issues right now that these coaches and personnel people are concerned about as we go forward.
Jim, let me ask you a follow-up. There is the more controversial proposal that I tend to think is not going to pass. The other measures that you talked about, one that you said that the NFL can, or two of them, you said the NFL can implement on their own, and then something that's up for a vote. Are those steps in the right direction that will significantly or marginally help improve the situation? Are they relatively bold steps or bold improvement?
No, I think they're absolutely the right steps. Anytime you can take an action to stop someone from limiting a person's mobility, to me, that is a positive. And I've spoken with teams that will be hurt by that first proposal, where now you can no longer block assistants from interviewing for coordinator positions. And what some have said to me is that, look, it will hurt us, but it's good for the broader good for these men to have an opportunity to climb that ladder. So from that standpoint, it's a positive. What's interesting about that resolution is that in the language it says now, because as you referred to earlier, people play with titles to circumvent some of the rules. But now the commissioner, if there is a disagreement between two clubs over whether or not it is, as the league says, a bona fide coordinator position, that is where the commissioner can step in, and his ruling would be binding and non-reviewable. So I do believe that that's a positive.
Marcellus, before you jump back in here, I want you to consider this. By the more controversial proposal, I think it has set off a round of conversation that I do think is going to benefit the NFL. I got something in my mailbox from the Yahoo Sports editors where they were like, here's a proposal, solutions that are better than the ones that the NFL is offering up with this initiative. I think to some degree this is calculated by Roger and Troy to put it out there, to put pressure on people, to refocus the conversation and make people dig deep and come up with a solution. I don't think, and this is speculation on my part, I don't think they thought it would pass. I think they thought it would galvanize people to engage in a conversation and provoke some further actions.
I can tell you that's not the case. Yeah, no, I can tell you that's not the case here. Yeah, there's some lobbying going on right now to try and get this passed. The commissioner, as I've been told, is, very supportive of this, and they would like to see this passed. So it wasn't a trial balloon or to generate some sort of energy to get a discussion going. They've been trying to have this discussion for years. I mean, and they have taken steps. You go beyond the Bill Walsh Diversity Fellowship. Then you talk about bringing in African-American coaches or minority coaches to a summit last year on Morehouse's campus, where they were networking and they wanted to empower these men to try and figure out how to address this. They've talked to owners about this. The one thing I'm hearing from owners right now, what they question is whether or not this is the right time to do it, simply from the standpoint that we're in a pandemic. They don't know how this season is going to play out or if there will even be a season. And they're asking, is this the right time to take this up? Now, the counterpoint to that is it's always the right time to do the right thing. And some feel this discussion needs to be had now.
Yeah, I think that they actually genuinely feel that this is the right step. I think it's going to be met with harsh reaction, but I think that their intentions are known. And look, they saw the wave of the Rooney Rule. There were 2 black head coaches in 2003, and then they hired Marvin Lewis to make it 3. And they saw the wave and they saw the spike, and then they also saw it regress and decline to where it is now in the state where now there's only 4. Think about it. Almost 2 decades later, you're looking at a situation where you really haven't had the tremendous impact that you intended. So they're now going back to another situation, and it's the drawing board, because it's not really just the Rooney Rule Part 2. They're really trying to go and have another invention using the Rooney Rule as a learning experience, because something has to change in their hiring practices. And this is something that even Rooney said. He said, look, we saw the increase, we saw the bump, we saw the positives, and then we also saw the regression. So Roger right now, who's under contract to 2024, is looking at his own legacy, is looking like, I can't have tremendous growth of this game, and everyone didn't grow because of this game. So I think that his heart's in the right place. I just don't know if this is going to be the landing spot.
Jim, I'm not going to push back too hard on your contention that you believe there's 1,000% sincerity in this move, and I tend to agree with that. But I think that they're wise enough to know that this thing's not going to pass. I also think they're wise enough to know that they've sparked a conversation again that we can unpack even more, and would love to have you come back, because I think a lot of times, and I'm sorry we got to end on this note, I think a lot of times we only talk about NFL ownership as it relates to minority coaches, and we never go the cut deeper in terms of there are some other players and influencers here that keep the good old boys network going. And I'm just going to throw this out here today and would love to have you back to circle on, but Jimmy Sexton and Bob Lamont, 2 powerful agents, represent about 1/3 of the NFL coaches. Jimmy Sexton represents, I believe, 11 of the 14 coaches in the SEC. These guys are major power players as it relates to coaching in football at the NFL and college level. And they have a lot of influence over ownership. They control who gets assistant jobs, head coaching jobs. And until there's a rival for them and the little network that they control, it's going to be hard to really change things. And we can continue to blame NFL ownership, and they certainly bear the brunt of the responsibility. But there's some other players involved in this that also need to be addressed. And again, I think by sparking this conversation, it gives us an opportunity to go a layer deeper and look at some of the underbelly and what else is involved in preventing African-American coaches from moving up, not just at the coaching level, because these guys represent executives too. There's a little cabal of agents, media, that have a lot of influence over who gets head coaches. It's not just NFL ownership. Jim, thank you so much for the time. We'd love to have you back. Jim Trotter from the NFL Network. All right, we got to keep it rolling. We're going to return to Last Dance. Rick Bucher's going to join us. We'll talk some more about Jordan's bully tactics, whether young people will emulate them. Speak for yourself from the crib, presented by Hyundai. More after this. All right, well, I'm back to Speak for Yourself from the crib. Happy Monday. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley. Speak for Yourself, presented to you by Hyundai. All right, let's return to the Last Dance documentary about Michael Jordan and the 1998 Chicago Bulls. We're joined in the Bay Area by Rick Bucher, our NBA analyst. Thank you for joining us, Rick. All right, the number one takeaway I have from this was, look, Michael Jordan was a bit of a bully. No question about it. And I think this could have a lot of impact on young athletes. Having just watched this 10-part documentary series, there's going to be a lot of young athletes that want to be like Mike. And so Marcellus, I wanted to ask you, do you think young athletes, particularly basketball players, will try to adopt some of Michael's bully tactics?
I don't think they will. You got to understand what that comes across as the bullying, whatever we want to call Jordan's leadership style. It looked self-satisfying, to be real. It looked like it was more for his ego and the condiments of Jordan's greatness, because the meat and potatoes was just be the best player and work the hardest. And any team you've ever been on, that silent leadership of the best player beating you in every drill, the best player being better than you in everything that he demands of you, is all that needs to be done. Think about it. If you're getting into an experience where you're bullying, outside force, trying to get it out of another player, even if you're successful, you won't be consistent, because you have to move on and take care of yourself. You have to move on and take care of other players. These players are already internally motivated to be that good. If they're going to be great, it's going to come from that same internal motivation. So I don't think the bullying does anything but give you a greater mystique and does something for your ego. So I say no.
It won't happen because players today don't know how. You know, we've created this whole culture now where the fact that we're calling it bullying and what bullying represents.
It was.
In today's society. Well, but there's a distinction. Bullying is, and going by the definition, is to intimidate and do harm to people that you consider vulnerable. Was that fully Michael Jordan's ambition? Was just to harm his teammates? Was just to exploit the fact that they were vulnerable, they weren't as good as he was, and so that he could make fun of them? I don't believe so. I think he had an ends to the means. And, for example, there's a piece where he says to Scott Burrell in the locker room before one of the Utah Jazz games, he says, hey, dog, don't be dog food. And I'm thinking most people are going to look at that, oh, man, he's just bullying. Why is he saying that? You want to bully somebody? You say, you know what? Dude, you're dog food. You don't say, don't be dog food, because what you're saying is, I know you can be better than what you
Scott
can.
Burrell a hoe.
You can get into all.
Let's be real.
He did.
Yeah, and did he do it? And did he do it? And did he say it with a little bit of a smile or a smirk, or was he saying like, I'm gonna mess with you a little bit? What was it? Right? So this is what I believe. We have players today won't do it because they don't know how, because we've taken away the opportunity for kids to grow
When has
up
that
and
stopped
have their own
anybody?
conflict resolution. Kids don't play with, there's no unorganized.
When has knowing how to do it stopped anybody? We'd all be virgins if we had to wait till we knew what we were doing.
100%. But you also didn't have somebody guide you there to do it. You had the opportunity to go out and figure it out on your own. That's the way it works. And you
trial and error, brother. Trial and error.
Yeah.
Listen,
hey, Rick,
imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Yeah. But look,
at the core of what
Imitation
you're
is the
saying,
highest
Rick,
form of flattery.
we got to get away from this, Rick. We roughed and toughed it out in my day, and these kids don't know how to do it, and if they did, they're soft, and that's why they don't do it. You know what's the difference between now and then? Options, choices, other ways up the mountain. And even Michael Jordan had options in his leadership style. Bill Russell was the nicest teammate ever, according to a lot of his teammates. Magic Johnson was a tremendous teammate and did it with a smile. There's a lot of ways you could go up there. Jordan took the path that he desired. But let's not act like other players since Jordan, like a Kobe Bryant and others, have not taken that same path. So this is not about, oh, you don't know how to do it or the constructs of this era. It's just simply in your own selection. And I wouldn't choose it the Jordan way, but I'm also not Jordan, for better or worse. And that's just as simple as it gets.
Rick, we got to go, but trust me on this. Going to be a lot of fights and practices moving forward. I'd hate to be on a little league, high school team, college team right now. We just watched Michael Jordan be celebrated for talking crazy to all of his teammates, beating up Steve Kerr, Will Perdue. It's going to be on and popping at these practices. Everybody trying to be baby Michael Jordan. All right, we got to go to baby Uncle Jimmy, get his thoughts on Michael Jordan and The Last Dance, Doc. Speak for yourself from the crib, presented by Hyundai. More after this. Welcome back to Speak for Yourself from the crib. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley on a wonderful Monday afternoon. All right, time to roll out to Uncle Jimmy's crib. Get his final thoughts on Last Dance and Michael Jordan. All right, Uncle Jimmy, you have any thoughts on your final thoughts on Michael Jordan and Last Dance?
Hey, man, first of all, there is no doubt in my former military mind about where I fall on this matter regarding Michael Jordan. All right? Look at it. Every dog and his daddy knows the answer to this question. Michael Jordan is the GOAT, and everybody knows it. The only person that don't seem to know it is LeBron James and his woke ass. He trying to run around talking about, I want the economy open. I want the barbershop open. The only reason he want the barbershop open is because he knows that's the only place he can beat Michael Jordan is in the barbershop. That's the only way he gonna beat him.
I don't think the ESPN's poll agrees with that.
Rest my case.
They say Jordan does a better job growing hair. We got to go. We'll see.